Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're plunging into Second Chronicles, not just as an old history book, but as this deep well of insight into power, leadership, human nature. Our mission for this deep dive, it's really to unearth those patterns, the consequences of big choices, and how this ancient story is surprisingly relevant for your understanding of ambition, faith, and sometimes folly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This isn't just like a roll call of kings. It's a carefully kept record, really, of a whole people's journey with their divine covenant. And it shows these critical lessons about leadership, national identity, and that constant tension between wisdom and folly. We'll see very clearly how seemingly small choices can have these huge ripple effects across generations.
Okay, so kicking us off, we start with Solomon, David's son. He's established he's exceedingly great. But here's where it gets really interesting right away, this pivotal choice he makes.
Right, the Gibeon encounter, that's chapter 1. And what's fascinating is he doesn't ask for the usual things, wealth, long life, defeating enemies. No, he asks for wisdom and knowledge to govern his people. This one request, it's key. And God's response isn't just, okay, here's wisdom. It's this abundance of everything else he didn't ask for. Wealth, riches, honor. Like no king before or after him.
And the scale of that greatness, it's almost hard to grasp. We're talking silver and gold becoming as common as rocks in Jerusalem.
Wow.
Cedar trees everywhere, plus this huge military, 1,400 chariots, 12,000 horses, imported, traded. It paints a picture of just incredible prosperity, doesn't it?
It really does. And the absolute core of Solomon's legacy, you have to say, is the temple. Chapters 2 through 4 detail this. I mean, it's a massive project. 70,000 carriers, 80,000 stonecutters, 3,600 foremen. And key detail, often overlooked maybe, is that a lot of these laborers were actually aliens, people from conquered nations, conscripted, Israelites served in other roles. It just shows the immense scale of manpower involved.
Yeah. And his communication with King Hiram of Tyre, that's fascinating too, chapter 2 again. Hiram sends timber experts from Lebanon, and crucially, this master craftsman, Hurmabi. His background is interesting too, mother from Dan, father from Tyre. And the skills list. Gold, silver, bronze, iron, stone, wood, fabrics, engraving. It really highlights this international effort, pooling the best talent for this one huge project.
And the temple itself, the sheer magnificence. You look at the dimensions. 60 cubits long, 20 wide. The entrance porch, 20 cubits high. And the most holy place, overlaid with 600 talents of fine gold.
600 talents?
Yeah. Just imagine pure gold covering everything. Carved cherubim, precious stones everywhere. Even the bronze altar was huge, 20 by 20 by 10 cubits. And that famous sea of cast metal, 10 cubits across, sitting on 12 sculpted bulls. It's just wow.
So what's the takeaway here for us looking back? This era sets this incredible benchmark, right? Prosperity, divine favor, and it seems directly tied to Solomon's first big choice, his commitment to this sacred purpose. It's like a powerful illustration. Prioritize wisdom, and maybe other things follow.
It really is. It sets a standard. And then when the temple was finished, Solomon gathers everyone, all Israel, to bring the Ark of the Covenant into the most holy place. Chapter 5. This wasn't some quiet, solemn thing, the sacrifices. It says they were innumerable. So many sheep and cattle they could not be recorded or counted. Just picture the scene.
And then that moment of awe, the trumpeters, the singers, all joining as with one voice, praising God. And boom, the temple fills with this cloud, the glory of the Lord, so thick the priests can't even do their jobs. That's such a dramatic physical manifestation of God's presence.
Absolutely. And Solomon's prayer in chapter 6, his dedication prayer, is incredibly important. He acknowledges, the heavens, even the highest heavens, cannot contain you, how much less this temple I have built. It shows real humility despite the grandeur. Yet he asks God to listen to prayers made towards this place for personal sins, national defeat, famine, even prayers from foreigners. It positions the temple as this focal point for their relationship with God, and maybe even a beacon to others.
And God's response is immediate and powerful. Fire comes down, consumes the offerings, the glory fills the temple again. Priests still can't get in, but here's the pivot, the conditionality, chapter 7. God says, if my people humble themselves, pray, seek my face, turn from their wicked ways, then I'll hear, forgive, and heal their land. But the flip side is just as clear. If they turn away, Israel gets uprooted, and this amazing temple, it becomes a byword and an object of ridicule. The stakes couldn't be higher.
Which leads us, unfortunately, straight to the shocking turn with Rehoboam in chapter 10. The people come to him asking him to lighten the heavy load his father Solomon had imposed, and he gets advice from the elders who serve Solomon.
Wise counsel, right. They basically said, be kind, listen to the people, and they'll serve you forever. Sounds like good advice.
It does, but Rehoboam rejects it.
He listens instead to his younger friends, his buddies, And their advice: tell the people my little finger is thicker than my father's waist. My father scourged you with whips. I will scourge you with scorpions. Wow. Talk about a disastrous response, just sheer arrogance. And it immediately sparks rebellion. The kingdom divides. You see the instant devastating impact of choosing the wrong advisors, of pride over wisdom.
And the text explicitly links this to God's plan, fulfilling an earlier prophecy. It wasn't just a political mistake. It was a moment of divine consequence playing out. Interestingly, the Levites and priests who get kicked out of the northern kingdom by Jeroboam because he set up idols, they migrate south to Judah. They actually strengthen Rehoboam for a little while, but it doesn't last. Soon after, Rehoboam and all Judah abandon the law of the Lord. And the consequence: invasion by Shishak, king of Egypt.
And the cost of that unfaithfulness is so symbolic. Shishak carries off the treasures, not just from the palace, but from the temple, including Solomon's amazing gold shields, and they get replaced with bronze ones. What a visual. Gold to bronze. It perfectly captures that lost glory, all because of a shift in leadership and loyalty. So from here on out, we really see this recurring pattern, this roller coaster of kings. Some start well, some are just bad news from the start, and their personal choices seem to dictate everything for the nation.
Exactly. Take Abijah, chapter 13. Short reign, but he leads Judah against Jeroboam's much bigger army. His speech is key. He emphasizes Judah's faithfulness versus Israel's idols. And because Judah relied on the Lord, even though they were ambushed, God gives them this massive victory. 500,000 casualties for Israel. It's a stark example of divine power stepping in based on reliance.
Then Asa picks up this thread, chapters 14 to 16. He starts great, cleanses the land, commands Judah to seek God. He's attacked by this huge Cushite army under Zerah, and Asa prays this prayer of total reliance. Help us, O Lord our God, for we rely on you. Do not let man prevail against you. And boom, God strikes down the Cushites. Another high point.
But, and this is crucial, even Asa falters later. Chapter 16. He's threatened by Baasha, king of Israel. And instead of turning to God like before, he raids the temple and palace treasuries to buy an alliance with the king of Aram.
After seeing such direct help before, why make that shift?
It's the perennial question, isn't it? Hanani the seer calls him out directly, reminds him about the Cushites, tells him, the eyes of the Lord range throughout the earth to strengthen those whose hearts are fully committed to him. You have done a foolish thing. You will be at war. It shows how easily even faithful people can forget past help under new pressure.
And Asa's reaction: he throws the prophet in prison and gets oppressive. It's a downward spiral. Even his foot disease later, the text notes he sought help only from physicians, not the Lord, doubling down on human solutions.
Right. Then comes Jehoshaphat, Asa's son. He starts strong, chapter 17, strengthens Judah, institutes teaching of the law, gets wealthy.
Oh, and my favorite story with him, chapter 20. Facing those huge armies from Moab, Ammon, Mount Seir, his response isn't military strategy, it's spiritual. He calls a fast, and his prayer is just raw honesty. We have no power, we do not know what to do, but our eyes are upon you. Incredible vulnerability.
And the prophecy comes through Jehaziel the Levite. The battle is not yours, but God's. The instruction: just take up your positions, stand firm, and see the deliverance.
And what do? They send singers out ahead of the army, praising God.
It's amazing. As they sing, the enemy armies just turn on each other and wipe themselves out. Judah arrives to find only dead bodies and tons of plunder. It's this incredible aha moment, spiritual warfare leading to physical victory.
But Jehoshaphat isn't perfect either. He makes this questionable alliance, marriage alliance, with Ahab, the wicked king of Israel, chapter 18. That leads to this disastrous joint campaign against Ramoth-Gilead. Ahab dies, just as the prophet Micaiah warned, ignoring the guy who saw a lying spirit in the other prophets. Jehoshaphat barely escapes. And he gets rebuked later by Jehu the seer for, helping the wicked. Shows the danger of compromising alliances.
And things really go downhill from there for a bit. Jehoram, Ahaziah, they follow the wicked ways of Israel's kings, murdering brothers, idolatry, chapter 21-22. Jehoram's end is particularly grim rebellion. An incurable, painful bowel disease, dies unregretted.
Which leads to maybe the darkest period. Athaliah, the queen mother, takes over and tries to wipe out the entire royal line of Judah. Chapter 22 again. Just ruthless ambition. Only the infant Joash is saved, hidden in the temple for 6 years by his aunt.
But then you see the power of righteous influence. Jehoiada the high priest orchestrates this coup. Chapter 23 crowns the 7-year-old Joash in the temple. Long live the king. Athaliah is overthrown, executed. And Joash reigns well for 40 years, as long as Jehoiada lives. He even restores the temple. It really highlights the impact of mentorship.
But as soon as Jehoiada dies, Joash goes off the rails, listens to bad officials, abandons the temple, worships idols, chapter 24. And when Zechariah, Jehoiada's own son, confronts him, Joash has him stoned to death in the temple court. It's just such a tragic betrayal. The cycle repeats. Good start, bad influences take over, disastrous end. Joash himself is defeated by a small army and then assassinated by his own officials.
Then Amaziah, Joash's son, chapter 25. He's described as doing what was right, but not wholeheartedly. That phrase says so much. He follows the law in one instance, not punishing the sons of his father's killers. Good. He listens to a prophet, dismisses some hired troops. Good. Wins a battle against Edom. But then, in this completely baffling move, he brings back the idols of the Edomites he just defeated and worships them.
Why? It makes no sense.
It really doesn't. And that lack of wholehearted commitment, that inner division, leads to his downfall. Defeated by Israel, eventually assassinated too.
Then Uzziah, chapter 26, another strong start, seeks God, prospers immensely, builds up Jerusalem, massive army, over 300,000 men. God gave him success. But the classic downfall, pride. After Uzziah became powerful, his pride led to his downfall. He arrogantly goes into the temple to burn incense, which only priests could do, and bam, leprosy strikes him right on the forehead.
An immediate, visible consequence. He lives out his days as a leper, cut off from the temple he violated. A powerful lesson about boundaries and humility. Okay, so after Uzziah and then Jotham, who was okay, but the people were still corrupt, we hit rock bottom with Ahaz, chapter 28. This guy embodies wickedness, builds idols, sacrifices to Baals, even burns his own sons in the fire.
Burns his sons, horrific.
He shuts the temple doors completely, sets up foreign altars on every street corner. And when he gets into trouble, he appeals to the king of Assyria, who actually makes things worse. But Ahaz doubles down, sacrificing to the gods of Damascus because he thought they were helping Assyria. Just total spiritual blindness.
But right after Ahaz, his son Hezekiah comes along, chapter 29. And talk about a breath of fresh air. He's 25, first month, first year of his reign. He opens and repairs the temple doors, commands the Levites, cleanse the sanctuary. And what strikes me is how he immediately owns the past failure. He says, look, our fathers were unfaithful, that's why we're in this mess.
Exactly. He leads this huge purification, rededication ceremony, grand sacrifices, heartfelt worship, music, just like David prescribed. Then he calls for a nationwide Passover, chapter 30, invites everyone, even from the northern kingdom remnants. And there's this beautiful moment where he prays for people who aren't ritually pure, but have set their hearts on seeking God. And it says, the Lord heard Hezekiah and healed the people. It shows this focus on the heart, on grace.
And it wasn't just spiritual feel-good stuff, right? Chapter 31, he reorganizes the temple service, the tithes, make sure the priests and Levites are supported so they can actually do their jobs, focus on the law, and it works. The chief priest says, basically, we've got more than enough because God has blessed his people. You see that practical link between faithfulness and prosperity again. But as Ahaziah faces the ultimate test, chapter 32, Sennacherib, the Assyrian king, invades, besieges Jerusalem. And Sennacherib uses psychological warfare, propaganda, mocks their faith in God, boasts about his own power, tries to demoralize them.
But Hezekiah's response is just epic. He tells the people, be strong and courageous, don't be afraid. With him is only the arm of flesh, but with us is the Lord our God to help us and fight our battles. What confidence. And then he and Isaiah the prophet just pray.
And the result is staggering. The Lord sent an angel who annihilated all the fighting men and the leaders and officers in the camp of the Assyrian king. Sennacherib just limps home in disgrace and later gets killed by his own sons. It's this undeniable, miraculous deliverance, a huge aha moment about God's power versus human might.
Yeah, truly amazing. But even Hezekiah stumbles. Later, envoys come from Babylon and pride gets the better of him. He shows off all his wealth, his treasures, and the text says God kind of stepped back then, testing him, wanting to know everything that was in his heart. A sobering reminder, even for the best.
And then Manasseh, Hezekiah's son, chapter 33. This is perhaps the most shocking story of all. He undoes all his father's good work, becomes the most wicked king imaginable, rebuilds the high places, Asherah poles, worships stars, sacrifices his sons.
Sacrifices his sons. Again, it's almost unbelievable.
Puts a carved image in the temple itself. Provokes God intensely. The text says he led Judah and Jerusalem to do more evil than the nations God had originally destroyed.
But then comes the twist nobody expects. Manasseh gets captured by the Assyrians, dragged off to Babylon with a hook in his nose. Brutal. And there, in his distress, he humbled himself greatly in praise.
And God hears him. restores him to his kingdom. Then Manasseh knew that the Lord is God. He comes back, removes the idols, restores the altar. It's this unbelievable story of repentance and restoration from the absolute depths. What does that tell you about the possibility of change?
It's profound. Redemption is possible even for the worst. Okay, after Manasseh's wicked son Amon has a very short reign, we get Josiah, chapter 34. Starts reigning at just 8 years old, does what's right, follows David's ways. By age 20, he's purging idolatry everywhere.
Then, year 18 of his reign, they're repairing the temple. And Hilkiah the high priest finds it, the book of the law of the Lord given through Moses. It had been lost or ignored for who knows how long.
And when Josiah hears it read, he tears his robes. He gets it. He sees how far they've fallen, understands God's anger. He sends people to consult Huldah the prophetess. She confirms judgment is coming, but tells Josiah because his heart was responsive, because he humbled himself, he'll die in peace before the disaster hits.
So Josiah gathers everyone, renews the covenant. They pledge to follow God wholeheartedly. Chapter 34, 35. And he holds this Passover celebration that's described as unparalleled, nothing like it since the days of the prophet Samuel. It's the absolute peak of revival.
But then, the tragedy. Chapter 35 still. Josiah interferes in a conflict between Egypt and Assyria, goes out to fight Pharaoh Necho at Megiddo. Necho even warned him, basically saying, God told me to hurry, stay out of this. But Josiah ignores him, disguises himself, goes into battle anyway.
And he's shot by archers, dies. His death is lamented deeply. Even Jeremiah writes laments for him. It's such a poignant, sad ending for a good king. A reminder that even good intentions, if they clash with God's specific will or warnings, can lead to disaster. And that really sets up the final chapter 36. It's just a rapid, tragic decline after Josiah, Jehoaz, Jehoiakim, Jehoiachin, Zedekiah. One after another, short reigns, and each one did evil in the eyes of the Lord.
The prophets, like Jeremiah, keep warning them. But the response, the text says, they mocked God's messengers, despised his words, and scoffed at his prophets, until the wrath of the Lord was aroused against his people, and there was no remedy. That phrase, no remedy, is chilling.
And the consequences finally arrive in full force. Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon. He comes, he conquers, he carries off temple treasures, destroys the city walls, burns the palaces, and finally carries the remnant of the people into exile in Babylon. The land is left desolate, empty to have its Sabbath rests for 70 years, just as Jeremiah had prophesied, the end of an era.
So looking back at this whole epic sweep, Solomon's glory, the divided kingdom, the ups and downs, the final fall, what does this whole chronicle really tell you about power, leadership, consequences?
Well, it vividly shows these cycles, doesn't it? Cycles of faithfulness and falling away, renewal and apostasy. It highlights that constant human struggle between sticking to core principles and, well, giving into pride, fear, or just convenience. We see God's covenant promises hold true, but the people's actual experience within that covenant is directly shaped by their choices, obedience, and humility, or the lack of them.
And yet, the book doesn't quite end there, does it? That very last paragraph, chapter 36, verses 22 and 23, it's like this unexpected coda. Cyrus, king of Persia, a foreigner, in his very first year. The Lord moves his heart. He makes a proclamation. Let the exiles go back to Jerusalem and rebuild the temple.
It's a stunning final note, isn't it? Hope emerging from utter desolation, orchestrated through a foreign ruler. It's not just an ending. It signals a potential new beginning. It reminds us that even when things seem completely lost, that thread of divine purpose and hope keeps running through history, often in unexpected ways.
So as you think about this deep dive, this whole story arc from Chronicles, here's something to chew on. How do those choices, the big ones and the small ones made by leaders and communities back then, how do they echo in the things we see playing out around us today? And maybe more personally, what temple in your own life, maybe it's a goal, a relationship, your integrity are you working to build with wisdom, keep pure with commitment, or maybe, just maybe, keep humble when things are going well. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep getting well informed.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.